Welcome to the SBCA podcast, Component Connection, where we explore the people, ideas, trends, and innovations shaping the structural framing industry. Regardless of how you touch this industry, we're glad you're here. Enjoy the episode.
Hello, I'm Molly Butz, Managing Director for SBCA, and I'll be your host for this episode of Component Connection Lumber Insights. I'm joined today by Justin Binning and Ken Timmins. Justin and Ken are lumber traders from American International Forest Products, or AIFP. Welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Hey there, Molly.
Thanks, Molly.
Hey, it's been a while. I feel like I haven't seen you guys or talked to you in a long time, actually. I was going to say a hot second, but that's not true. It's been a long time. So I guess Happy New Year? Can we still say that?
Totally. Yeah. Well, it's still January. So I was thinking about that too after the New Year, because I was like, I don't know, we were probably 10 days in, but like I saw a couple of neighbors, like we're going out for a walk through the neighborhood, and it was, hey, Happy New Year. And I was like, awkward. Like, where's the line there with like, dude, that's over? Is it like a 48 hour, 72 hour, 1 week?
No, I think someone said into February we had some leeway if it was someone you hadn't seen for a while. So I think we're good. I'm going to go with it. We're going to go.
Yeah, that's kind of in my head. I'm like, it's January still. Like, it's the New Year.
It's appropriate.
Exactly. Well, let's take it off with a recap over the last, I was going to say a couple of weeks, but it's really been more like 6. So what's been going on in the lumber market?
Well, I lost our imaginary Rochambeau. So Ken, I will be starting first, which is great. But, it's funny, when we left off here, it felt like in Yellow Pine, prior to Thanksgiving, you could just feel like some productions was starting to get taken out of the market. It was, are we coming upon a change in market dynamics? And we did. Through the month of December, the market really started to firm up, and we saw prices start to raise. Things got tight. We really ran, I know I can't talk numbers, but a lot over the last 30 days. So yeah, it's been a kind of interesting 6 weeks.
Probably more change over the last 6 weeks than we saw over 2025 in total.
Wow.
We got some tailwinds right before the holiday season, a couple weeks of production taken out for the week of Christmas, the week of New Year's, people feeling better about 2026 in a whole. Lots of customers took positions toward the end of the year. And, anytime that happens, you get back on January 2nd or 3rd or whatever it is, and the trading floor typically looks around and thinks, okay, is that going to sustain? Is that momentum enough? Is that a short cover rally, or are we going to go on a little bit of a run here? And today's the 27th of January, and we certainly have gone for a run, at least in fur products when I'm trading out west, and the tailwinds keep going. Now, without saying too many numbers, we've appreciated in general, varies product to product, let's call it 25%, give or take-ish.
Significantly.
Yeah, right. Didn't happen all last year. And it's funny, right? As a trader, you think in a lot of markets where you're delivering products, where are the prices of resistance, depending on the product in the market and where it is. And typically those $100 increments tend to be where customers will draw lines in the sand and say, okay, I'm not crossing this point. We've seen a few of those, and we have continued to just roll through them thus far, which is a sign of a very healthy market. I would say from an activity standpoint, this is the first time we've had an upward trending market sustained for over 30 days in a couple of years. We've had little blips. We've had upward pops. We've had short cover rallies. We haven't had an upward trending market in a while. And it almost has a lot of people confused and stunned to some degree, right? People aren't fully prepared to interact with that kind of pool, right? It's like you're on vacation, you got your inner tube out, you're drinking your pina colada in the pool. It's very nice, it's calm. And all of a sudden, it becomes a wave pool. And it's like, well, how do I do this? I haven't been doing this in a long time. You're interacting with the market, the water differently. I will say, while in any upward trending market, it can feel quiet at times. Take today's a Tuesday, for example. Tuesdays and Thursdays before the pricing report comes out tend to be quiet in the morning and robust in the afternoon, right before the buzzer beater, so to speak. We are seeing some of these sharper buyers from throughout the country participate and stay ahead of the market, while some folks are trying their best to fight it. Because a lot of folks, again, say we're up about 25%. Some people at 10 or 15% increase will say, it's not going any further. I'm not going to do it. You kind of throw up your hands and say, oh, phooey, it's, I don't believe it anymore. And there's cases to be made in both directions this week. Significant weather across the country, heavy freezing in zones that typically don't experience that kind of weather except for every couple of years. Very fortunate out here in Oregon. We're 45 and light breeze. Today's the first day of overcast we've had in weeks, which is not typical. But the West Coast business, fur trading, has been really active because of that. Similar to 2023, the same sort of weather pattern happened. And one thing I want to keep in mind is we all thought it was the best thing ever until the spring building season came around. And we kind of stole demand from the back end of spring. April and May, which are typically some of the best months of the year, were lackluster because, January, February, first part of March were rock solid. So that could happen again this year. I would say Doug fur products, green Doug fur is the strongest of all the species right now. California is doing great. Los Angeles is 85 degrees this week. That's perfect building weather. No problem there. Northern California is doing good. Oregon's been great. Washington's been great. And then as you start moving into the dry fur markets, Utah, Nevada, Idaho, Arizona, Texas, little bits of weather there, not a ton, Texas predominantly. And then, of course, there's a pocket of fur trading that gets done in the Northeast, upstate New York City, that sort of thing. And that is being hindered right now. Although I don't anticipate it lasts longer than a week to 10 days. I bet we get back to routine weather and building conditions here within 2 weeks. And at that point, I believe the upward trending market continues. I don't think it goes all the way through spring. In my decade of trading, I've never seen a winter market make it all the way through spring except for 2021,
Sure.
which was an anomaly. You can't really
Different. Yeah.
You can't compare that to anything.
The only thing that differs, right, from that time, like from my perspective, which could change the paradigm and shift how markets are perceived and how people take part in them, is based on supply, right? Like we continue to lose supply. So that's what, again, it's this twofolded thing where we continue to lose supply. We've lost it so much. Remember, we always talk like our customers don't care. Like a sawmill went down or another production notice, and no one cared, right? And no one cared and no one cared. Well, no cared.
Reaction.
Oh, it's time to start caring, right? And that's the state of shock that I think Ken was kind of alluding to, where it's like, I don't believe it, but it's happening, right? And we've become so accustomed to getting what we want, when we want it, at what price we want, the exact tally we want. And like some of those things are being stripped away and you don't realize it until you realize it. With pine, it was this kind of perfect storm with idling down production. At the same time, our customers have very lean inventories. They're in this hand-to-mouth mode continually. And then all of a sudden you get one segment that comes in, makes a significant buy, cleaning up the majority of prompt wood. And now you've got mills with order file and curtailment times at the same time with holiday shutdowns. Mm-hmm. And it's like, holy smokes. And creates this perfect storm and a huge catalyst to raise prices. They've been able to sustain that now. We're in our kind of eighth week of what I think will be another upprint on most items in Southern Yellow Pine. And we haven't had an 8-week stretch in over a year in that type of run. And again, to Ken's point, like we're doing this through November, December, or, December, January. And what else, Ken touched on that I think is a similarity with pine right now is I do think there's sustainability within these higher prices. I'm really looking at 26 as a year of higher highs and higher lows. I don't think that we're going to go back and see some of these price levels that we tested in the fourth quarter of 25. I think they're behind us. And the reason that I'm feeling that way is a couple of reasons. One, the production in the U.S. South really figuring out where demand is and figuring out over this past year and how that aligns with supply, right? And making sure that they are staying profitable.
Right.
That's very important. I also think with the current administration, they've been talking a lot recently in the last 90 days about housing in particular, and some things that they're floating these different ideas out there, right? And kind of the ether and trying to figure out what are people talking about, or, what do economists think? And, what's the feeling out there with some of these things? But the fact of the matter is they are thinking about it. And there's going to be some stuff coming our way in housing that's here to spur it, right? To spur housing. So we've got a new Fed chair coming in May. That's Trump's made it very clear. He wants to be aggressive on rates, and he wants to drive rates lower, and he wants to make a push towards housing and unlock the trillions of dollars in our industry, right? And locked up capital and equity in homes and get it flowing. But I think he realizes the number is going to take more right now to unleash all of that. To get those people in those sub 3% mortgages to move, 6% is not going to do it, right? We've got to be able to figure out a way to get that rate down to make it make sense for that person at that 2.5%, 3% loan to say, you know what, 5%, I can make that work. And I can justify that based on what I need for my family, or what I need for myself, right? So I think we've got some really good tailwinds, bottom line, working for us this year. And it's exciting. I think this is going to be an exciting year. I think we grind still the first half of the year. But again, I think the overall push is going to be higher. And I'm excited and I'm very optimistic about a really strong second half of the year.
It's interesting, Ken, when you started, you were talking about it causing some confusion, but that tracks because we've been talking about, it feels like for years even, we've been talking about the choppy market, right? So a little up, a little down. And so when you see some sort of steady trend, that's got to feel really different for everyone involved at this point.
Yeah.
Sticker shock.
Very much so. Well, and just the tone of the conversation, your vernacular is changing. The sawmills are speaking differently to customers, wholesalers, end users, builders to their customers. Everybody is. And it just seems like, what do you mean I can't call you up and get exactly what I want, when I want it, how I want it, at a price that I pick?
Right.
Like a perfect example here, right before we stepped in to record this podcast, had a customer looking for a straight 16-foot truck, which doesn't happen a ton on the West Coast, but over the last couple of years, we've been doing plenty of that. And, we're banging it around. And really the best options we saw were, we could bump them up to a select truck grade and cover it for a higher price, or get a rail car with 12 to 20 foot lengths, heavy-ish 16. And what we decided was we'd actually go with a truck that had 3 units of 16 with other things. And it was at a price that we didn't expect to pay. And, there was a lot of effort that went into it, and we felt good. And 3 months ago, that would not be the case. You could send out your inquiry to 5 people, 4 of them had it, let them duke it out for whoever wanted to get as skinny as possible on the price and award a PO. It's just not really the way it is right now, which is interesting. And I think the variance in the market tonality is refreshing and healthy, because I think it reminds everybody to be a team player all the time, right? Where if you trend in one direction for too long, one side of the equation gets cavalier. So I actually think it's a very healthy, refreshing change of pace for the industry. And it also, anytime you change possessions like that, great time to talk about partnership with your customers and vendors, because really then you can start looking out for each other more, and you can roll through market cycles tangentially instead of kind of against one another.
That makes a lot of sense. In any good business, you're going to do a vendor review, right? And make some decisions about where you want to go moving forward. So if there are some other aspects playing into that, that certainly is going to, make even more sense.
Absolutely.
I was looking back at my notes from last time we met, which was like early December, actually. And you were talking a little bit about, maybe a mid-December buying flurry, which it sounds like we definitely had a little bit more of that. But then one of the notes I made was that February is at least often tough. So as we look kind of ahead to the next part of the podcast of where are we going, what advice would you have for our folks for the next few weeks before we meet again? How does that play into where we're going, where we're headed?
Oh, yeah. What I would say is, I think over the next 30 days is a great opportunity and another kind of a buy-in point for spring. Like, I feel like it's, last flash sale, I don't know what I say, flash sale, right? Like, this is going to be kind of the moment. And my thinking with that, there's a lot of wood, I think, that still needs to be bought. I don't think inventories necessarily were accumulated for any, long set of period of time over the last 30, 45 days. But I do think folks are going to want to start building more inventories. I think there's a lot of jobs that are out there that need to be covered over the course of the next 90 days. And that will put pressure on supply as well. 2x4 right now is in yellow pine is the strongest, both in number 2 and number 1 grades in terms of holding its own price. 6 inches has cooled off, definitely. And 6 inches is always one thing that I always keep an eye on. It is the most efficient, easiest thing for a sawmill to run, and the most and sold at the highest volumes. And so you keep your eye on 2x6, kind of gives you maybe a peek into what to expect with 2x4. And so what I'm seeing with 2x6 is a little bit of softness. I'm starting to see some buildups throughout the U.S. South. I'm not saying that I'm seeing the discounts attached to them right now, but I'm not seeing the price well over print. I'm seeing it closer to print. So something to keep an eye on. But I think that we're going to have just a cooling off period, but I don't know. I'm not expecting a large retraction in pricing over the next 30 days. I think it's, as the word we like to use from time to time, is choppy. You may have an item, there's a buildup, it's a Tuesday, and the mill's like, hey, I need to move these. What's it going to take? And you make an offer and you make a great buy and you have the liquidity for it at the end and everybody's happy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that's the market now and that's where the price is. But that was a moment, that was a trade. It does not signify that, and it's not going to be reported about in Random Lengths print. So there'll be opportunities like that, I think, over the next 30 days. And then I think there'll be items that you'll still be like, man, still can't find those, or man, those are still holding their own, aren't they? The price is still up there. And it's like, yep. And so it's not going to be a one size fits all shoe in terms of the marketplace over the next 30 days. But I do think you've got to stay where we've been able to be a little bit of lax. And I'm not saying we, but maybe customers, right? Where, Ken and I both touched on it. You can kind of pick up the phone and easily get whatever you need. We're navigating a bit of a different time right now. And you've got to stay closer to your friends that know where the lumber is and really have a good line of communication with them and what your upcoming needs are, so that they can do the best at supplying those needs and finding the best values for you on a daily basis. So that would be where we're at, where I think we're going to going, and my best advice for you to attack over the next 30 days.
I agree with that completely. I think it's tough for a winter market to make it all the way through spring unfazed, right? I always make the comparison, upward markets typically 2 up, 1 back, 2 up, 1 back, 2 up, 1 back. Kind of feels like we're 3 up, 1 back, 4 up, 1 back, right? So the feeling of the backward trend really won't feel backward at all. It's really more of a digestive breather. But I totally agree with Justin, right? Like if you're looking for a very specific MSR grade or a very desirable tally, 16s, 20s, that kind of thing, you're really not going to feel any discounts at all. There might be a buildup on short lengths. There might be a buildup on number 2. But there's also been a lot of the larger players in the market making volume offers on things all the time at aggressive prices. And I think they're hearing no a lot of the time. And I think when those kinds of opportunities pop up, they'll get absorbed pretty quickly by people that need to keep multiple locations open and filled with product. So February has knocked me out many years in my career. I routinely get drunk on the January high and then fall flat on my face in February. So far this year, it actually doesn't look like it's going to play out that way. Staying frosty. I think the veteran traders on our floor have kind of alluded their plan is to stick with it all the way through, knowing that at the end you'll probably take a punch on something. But it's better to stay in front of this thing because there really is no end in sight in terms of we definitively think 2 weeks from now this thing flips around, or so it could happen. The market reserves its right to change at any given point, but I think it's a healthy bet to keep sticking with it for the foreseeable future, at least until we record another podcast. I would not be afraid of participating in this market. I think the sooner the better. Sitting on your hands definitely can cost your business money.
One thing I was going to just mention, just a quick one, obviously with logistics being difficult right now with the storm that's gone through. Hope everybody, all of our listeners, everybody stayed safe through that and warm. But cars, I know we got a report this morning, cars out of Western Canada have not been moving very well at all. So there's definitely some delays there. And then obviously delays as the car moves through, depending on what type of weather. So we don't see any overall bigger trends, I think, that have really changed with traffic overall or capacity. Truck rates seem pretty stable, and things outside of the storms seem to be moving pretty well. Like nothing major to report there. So anyways, little logistical update, I guess.
Great. I think this was a great way to kick off a new year of Lumber Insights, and you've given us a lot of great information. I believe this wraps up our episode for this week. Justin, Ken, thank you for your continued expertise and enthusiasm. And thank you all out there for listening to SBCA's podcast, Component Connection. If you enjoyed this episode and found it valuable, please like and share it with others. And stay up to date and in the know by subscribing to Component Connection on whatever podcast platform you use most. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks for listening to Component Connection, brought to you by SBCA. If there's a topic you'd like us to explore in a future episode, email us at podcast@sbcacomponents.com.